you guys. I appreciate you all coming and joining us today. So really quick on today's agenda and what we're going to talk about when we're talking about our new normal is I want to give a little bit of background about Spins. Not sure how many people on the phone actually know who we are, what we do. I assume there's probably a plethora of people who do, but just in case you don't, just a little bit intro about us. Then we're going to dive into some sales trends that we have been seeing kind of pre-COVID, during the stockpiling, and now kind of post-stay-at-home order. And we're starting to see a second wave come throughout the country, and we'll kind of take a look at that data. From there, we're going to talk about some of the core functional ingredients that's driving the growth behind some of these categories and some of these items that people are really going out and continuing to buy. And then from there, we're going to extend kind of beyond the core, analyze kind of shopper habits, what kind of is adjacent to those trends that we're seeing, and what we go out and we're seeing consumers continuously purchase even after kind of the stockpiling phase has ended. And then to end everything, we're going to look beyond the insights, and we're going to move forward and talk about kind of the new normal that we can start to think about, at least for the end of 2020, and really start to think about 2021 and maybe innovation and things that you guys can think of when we're talking about products and things that are happening all overall in the industry. So with that, let's get started. A little bit of history about Spins. Spins was actually founded in San Francisco over 20 years ago. And since then, we have moved to Chicago, and we help brands and retailers empower themselves by wellness-focused insights. So one of the things that we do very differently in the industry is we are able to put a Spins proprietary lens on things, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but this allows retailers and brands to understand what's truly happening in the market, what are consumers buying, what does that look like, and how can brands innovate maybe into some new segments that they never really thought that was really something that was trending now. So with that being said, what do we actually do? So we collect POS, or point of sale data, and we aggregate that data from our retailers that we work with. We make it accessible to our brands and put it in a format for brands to read and even retailers to understand their own sales and what's happening in the market. We add a proprietary Spins lens on that, and I'll talk about what that means here in just a second, but this allows for deeper insights into the data to understand what's really happening, what's going on. And then it allows for retailers to redecide, okay, what do my categories need to look like? What new products should I be bringing in? What products should I get rid of? It allows brands to innovate and grow and take their story and move on to other retailers and larger retailers to continue to grow their business. And so one of the things that sets us apart from other data providers out there is we have this idea, and we track this entire kind of segment over on the left-hand side called the natural channel. And so that's something very different. Most people, if you're not from the industry or you're new to the industry, are very familiar with that right-hand side, the conventional supermarkets. They're very large. They're everything that you can think of, like your Kroger's, your Wegmans, your Targets, your Publix. And those are important. We track that channel, but we also segment out this natural channel, which is going to be more of like your Sprouts or your independent grocery co-ops like NCG and Infra, your natural grocers. We even segment things out like regional grocery retailers such as Caputo's in Chicago, or Tony's Finer Markets, or Fairway out in New York. We also kind of segment some things out into pet and some vitamins and supplements, and we even track a few e-commerce retailers like Lucky Vitamin and Thrive Market. So the way that Spins looks at their retailers, I would say, is a little bit more in depth, and we'd like to try and round it out more, and we'd continue to grow our retailer partnerships every single day and bring on new retailers every month we release data. Now, one thing to note really quickly about the natural channel is the natural channel excludes Whole Foods. So I just want to put that out there. Whole Foods is not a part of our natural channel numbers when we are looking at that. But when we look at the data, we're talking natural channel X Whole Foods. One other thing that makes us very unique, and I keep talking about this Spins proprietary lens that we put on things, this would be our attribution. So one thing we do is we add a bunch of attributes. So whether that's label claims, sizes, flavors, brand names, everything that is on the package we actually code, and this allows us to go into deeper insights about the product. So things like your nutrition label or your ingredient label, if you don't have a claim that maybe says that your product's a keto-friendly diet or a Whole30 friendly diet, we can actually, because of your ingredient label and your product label, your nutrition fact panel, we can say, hey, this product is actually a keto-friendly diet product. And from there, we're able to give brands and retailers deeper insights into what's driving category growth or what might be driving category decline as well. So some quick highlights for today. Today, we are going to be talking about data running through May 17th of 2020. Each channel is going to be combined in the data that we look at. So we are going to be looking at our natural channel, our natural enhanced channel, along with our conventional multi-outlet channel that is partnered and powered by IRI, our partner of ours. One thing I want to call out that we're going to be talking about is I'm going to be referencing to NPI, which is the natural products industry. So when we're looking at some of this data, this is mainly going to be about the natural products. So a natural product to SPINS is going to be anything that has the strictest of the strict ingredients, things that the nutrition label is very clean, it's very easy to read. When you're reading the back of the ingredient label, you understand exactly kind of what's in it. You're not reading and not understanding, there's no like aspartame or anything in that. That is going to be kind of part of our natural products industry when we reference NPI. So with that, I am going to go into some sales trends that we have been seeing. So during the peak, consumers sought wellness products that deliver on immunity benefits. Kind of in our new normal, shoppers look beyond the vitamin aisle to deliver on total health and wellness. And so consumers are branching out beyond immunity into other wellness-focused ingredients as they look to either maybe drop the quarantine 15 weight that they added or look to actually seek to be healthier because gyms are closed and they can't do their normal routine. So sales on traditional natural immunity boosting ingredients remain very strong post kind of the initial stockpile. And we continue to see things like probiotics, whole grains, natural sweeteners, and ancient grains that become key ingredients to consumers when they're looking towards trying to find a healthier lifestyle or adjust their diets away from maybe very heavy foods towards more of a strength and wellness type area. So with that being said, grocery sales, as you can imagine, continue to remain elevated. So this is taking a look at the beginning of 2020 with the week starting at 1/5/2020, and it goes into our current period of May 17th. And as you can see the stockpile continues to happen, and you see the weeks of March 15th and March 22nd kind of being those stockpile weeks. But those green lines or the green bars represent the dollars, while the yellow line represents the week dollar percent change versus a year ago. So you can see afterwards, it dipped a little bit, probably because, you know, everyone's stockpiled and we're good to go. But what's interesting is you can see out of all of the natural products, it continues to stay pretty steady and have higher growth versus a year ago in that weekly dollar percent change. So it continues to stay strong, and it's not going back down to the way it was in January, where it was, I would say, pretty level set, growing at a mildly pace or sometimes not growing at all. So the natural products industry, defined by SPINS, represents 8.5% year-to-date of total store sales. And what's really important is you can continue to see that it outpaces conventional products. And so what I want to highlight here is the last 5 weeks of data that we look at, the green bar represents that natural NPI. And so this is the natural products industry, and the natural products are still outpacing a conventional product like a Frito-Lay or something of that sort. So it's really interesting to see even kind of the post stock up and post kind of stay at home order that natural products continue to have that strength and continue to grow by some of these numbers. Now, taking a look at shoppers and continuing on to what shoppers are looking for and where they're buying their products. This is specifically looking at food and beverages. And this is more along functionality of beverages. So what we are doing here is that we are taking a growth rate of the latest 4 weeks, and we're comparing it to a 52-week trend, which is where you kind of get that growth index number in that red color. So what we're doing is we're level setting to say that if we looked at the last 4 weeks and versus the 52 weeks, you can notice that people are starting to reach out for different things like functional beverages. So if you think about it, consumers are starting to reach out more on kombuchas and things that can help their gut and have probiotics than maybe what they have before. Sparkling water, for example, people are buying more sparkling water than ever because they're not reaching towards those sugary soda drinks. They're instead looking for products like the sparkling water or the kombucha or the Gold Threads of the world. What you'll notice is you'll also notice wellness bars are on here. And although they are down 28% from a year ago, they're indexing very high because if you think about it, when the shutdown happened, kind of wellness bars are grab and go. A lot of the items are grab and go. So when that shutdown happened, a lot of offices closed, a lot of people weren't leaving their houses. So that grab and go category seemed to decline a little bit. But what we're seeing now after post-COVID and kind of in our new normal is that they're indexing really high because as people are starting to go out and work out outside or go for hikes or do more things with their family, they're starting to come back and grab and go with those items at their local stores. So they can go ahead and have something in their pocket while they're on their hike or their bike ride or whatever that may be. The same can go more about more traditional categories here. So what you'll notice here is more ingredient density. So you can notice some of the same trends with like frozen plant-based meats or staying at home and being able to bake more. Some of this stuff isn't probably super, it's not something that you're like, oh yeah, I wouldn't think baking mixes is something that's up. You probably already knew that, but things that you can start to see continue to trend and index high are alternative grains. Plant-based continues to perform really high after quarantine. And what we're starting to see is it's all about nutrition density, and what people are starting to look for is not only can the product be functional in more than just one way, but what is the nutrition behind that? And so you get a lot of that from plant-based milks and a lot of research coming out, and from vitamins and minerals, which again shouldn't be shocking, but then like baking mixes and those sorts of things. And so people are gathering around and buying items that are not only functional, but also can provide nutrition for themselves and their families. So with that, during the peak, consumers kind of sought wellness products that delivered on immunity benefits. In the new normal, shoppers look beyond the vitamin aisle and they're delivering on total health and wellness. And you'll start to see that through this next slide here. What this is this is core wellness ingredients still top of mind to consumers. So if you're taking a look here over on the left-hand side of the table, this is the last 4 weeks versus 52. And this is just calling out some of the top ingredients that are continuing to grow really strong. So like elderberry, zinc, mushroom, turmeric is growing because it's anti-inflammatory, oregano, antibacterial and antioxidant, and then collagen, which is supposed to help not only with your gut, but it's supposed to help with your joint health and your nails and your hair and all of that stuff. You'll notice that things like melatonin are also continuing to grow, which hasn't always seen a ton of growth in the past. But what you will notice that I will call out is something that everyone in the industry talked about, I would say probably this time last year, but seems to be declining in the latest 4 weeks. And we continue to see that climb even post kind of COVID, and that stockpiling is CBD. So CBD is declining, and that could be for multiple reasons. It could be an economic situation for families because CBD can be more expensive. It could be people are seeking other ingredients. So if someone was using an ingredient like CBD for sleep, they now could be turning towards something like melatonin instead, because it does the same thing but a lower price point. So there's different things that we're seeing throughout an ingredient profile when we are looking at specific ingredients across our categories and across our channels here. And that's very interesting that CBD continues to decline while other things are starting to replace that, because consumers are trying to find potentially something that may be a little bit less expensive. And consumers kind of continue to seek those natural solutions. And the three main themes out of this would be really boosting your immunity, reducing your stress and anxiety, and finding different areas where you can help your immunity grow. And so you see these sorts of things with certain ingredients and in certain categories and subcategories, like your refrigerated functional beverages. You find comfort. Actually, shelf-stable candy is growing, even though it may not have a functionality to it. It's growing because maybe your kids are at home, you're feeding them more, you're trying to find different alternatives within that of maybe not as much sugar. So going into an alternative type candy. Coffee and hot cocoa is something that's also very big in continuing to grow. Things like mushroom coffee from like Four Sigmatic are coming out, and there's a bunch of different things within these categories that are addressing these types of things of anxiety, of stress, of immunity, of mood, all those sorts of things. And we kind of see that throughout our categories and subcategories as you can see this type of growth. So I want to talk a little bit kind of navigating beyond that core and taking the same idea of the previous slide we were just looking at and using this more as food for medicine. So whether a consumer is looking to shed a few extra pounds from quarantine or just looking to optimize their health, we've seen a very big rise in kind of these four areas, which would be plant-based, which, as you know, there's been a lot of articles coming out that plant-based has a bunch of health benefits, including cancer, health disease, stroke, all these sorts of things that a plant-based diet can really help when you're thinking of your immunity and you're thinking of your health. Something that has been talked about for a long time would be low glycemic or unsweetened, or using different types of sweeteners instead of added sugars. And so you can see those growing through things like hot cereals, baking mixes, even things like frozen pancakes. We continue to talk about gut health. That is a huge thing. Probiotics, prebiotics, anything that can help anxiety, any of that sort of immune is continuing to grow. And we see that specifically in food, from your refrigerated and marinated pickles and vegetables, because you have that vinegar, you have those probiotics in there. Same with your plant-based cream cheese and your sour creams. And then finally, your nutrition density. So we're seeing a lot of growth right now within ancient grains and other nutritional dense type products. And so things like fresh cookies and having a lot of those elements come from an ancient grain out of there, or bagels and English muffins, again, more on that nutrition dense ancient grain type product is really growing throughout the industry and through the data. Now, what's interesting is, one of the things I did mention is we take a look at different diets. So this is based upon the ingredient label, it's based upon your nutrition facts panel. And so we have segmented out 3 different quad week time periods, so 4-week time periods, starting from kind of the stockpiling phase, so March 22nd to then April 19th, and then following up with May 17th of this year. And what you'll notice is on 3/22, folks were buying what was probably left on the shelf. And this may not be the best directional understanding to say, okay, keto's really strong, or a plant-based diet is a really strong diet. Then you kind of go into the week of April 19th and that 4-week time frame. And this is probably where, at this point, because of the stockpiling, you're seeing some out of stock issues happening. And you're still seeing a high growth. Don't get me wrong, none of these numbers are bad, but it kind of brings it back down a little bit. But what's interesting that we've seen in the last 4 weeks with that May 17th end date is it's continuing to grow. And so basically what this could be indicating is people aren't abandoning these types of diets or these types of products. People are continuing to go back and buy more of that. And so this is something that our product intelligence team has been able to decipher for our brands and help them understand that the growth is continuing to stay strong even after kind of this post-COVID stock up. And as we get into this new normal, people are still going out and seeking these types of products, which leads me into the hot topic that everyone likes to talk about, which is plant-based. The plant-based boom continues to accelerate despite anyone thinking that it might not. So this is taking a 52-week, week-by-week trend starting from 5/26/2019, and we're specifically looking at these 5 subcategories, which is frozen plant-based ice cream, frozen plant-based almond milk, plant-based hot dogs, breakfast meat alternatives, and then coconut milk. And we're taking a week-by-week trend look on what's happening. And what the red line represents is it's going to represent your weekly dollar percent change. So again, you can see that going way up and spiking way over 100% during kind of that stockpiling time and then going back down. But what you'll notice is even as it went back down, people continue to buy more of it. And as the weeks move on into kind of our new normal, we continue to see people buying more and more of these types of plant-based products, which means that buyers actually like what they're eating and they like the products that they're buying. They may have purchased them during that stockpiling phase because that's what was left on the shelf. But after that, they continue to see that growth and you see that high growth. And so this is done by units, which is good because you can take a look at this and the units in dollars are looking the same within these 5 subcategories. But if we looked at kind of the unit growth and the base dollar growth, you can notice that they're consistent. And if you compare that to your promo units, what you'll notice in these weeks down here is promos actually have gone down and there haven't been really many promos run, but the units versus a year ago in that green line here continue to stay high, which again would lead us to believe and say that people are coming back and buying more of these plant-based products because they really want to and they like them and they're tasty, not because they're forced into buying them. And so plant-based has seen a huge acceleration during COVID because they have had new buyers that have tried them and have said this isn't bad, and they continue to go back and continue to buy more. Now, this isn't a huge volume when you're looking at this by dollars. If you looked at by dollars, it's still very small compared to your traditional meats and those sorts of things and milks, but it's all about the units and the continuous growth that they keep seeing while everyone else kind of keeps staying the same or potentially dipping low and kind of losing some of that share. So one thing that we can talk about is learnings from any past recession. So this is actually out of our SPINS vault. This is data looking back in 2007, 8, and 9. And despite kind of any economic headwinds, natural products continue to have that solid growth during and after a recession. So if we just looked at 2007, 8, and 9, and we compared that to a potential recession coming up here that people are talking about, natural products still had a very strong growth within those 3 years of our recession. And growth is expected through any upcoming recession because consumers are looking for a desire to have healthier alternatives. And they're looking for a desire to not only just have a product do one thing for them, but do multiple things. So if you think about the functionality and how we've been talking about immunity and those sorts of things, that's what consumers are looking for a product to do right now. And that's what we would anticipate continue to happen if any sort of recession were to happen from that. So in short, data is now something that you really can't exist without. Having a pulse of what is going on is going to be super key to your growth, to understand what's happening in the market and what consumers are really buying and purchasing. And you can't assume that what was pre-COVID is going to end up being post-COVID and things are going to kind of go back into the way they were. I think one thing that this has shown is that there is going to be a new normal coming out there, and people are going to be more concerned about their diets or what they're feeding their kids, or eating more healthy at home, cooking more meals instead of going out. And then that really there's more functionality kind of in beverages than ever. So you think of all the different beverages out there, you continue to see innovation in that area of people coming out with a bunch of different either teas or kombuchas or sodas that have multiple purposes. The other thing is nutrition dense foods are continuing to be on the rise as consumers move back towards kind of those healthier options. And ingredients like probiotics being integrated across many categories are, again, what consumers finding as a function to help them with their gut and other immunity type products. So consumers are giving their immune system an additional boost by incorporating things like plant-based diets, different functionalities to their lifestyle, and turning to different functional either breakfast staples or just different foods in general to promote strength and wellness throughout their body and mind. And so kind of looking beyond that and how you go forward with that strategy is, I would say that there are a couple different areas that as a brand you kind of want to ask yourself and think about. And the first one is just thinking overall differently and understanding that consumer shopping is never going to be the same. I can tell you that if we do go to a grocery store in my household, only one of us goes. My daughter probably hasn't seen a grocery store since the beginning of March. And if we don't do that, we're shopping online. So thinking of how your own habits have changed and how other consumer habits have changed because of this. Also assessing your own brand and thinking about what maybe makes your brand special that might not be on your packaging, or that you may need to market differently about because you know something. So there might be some things that your product does today that you couldn't fit on the packaging, or you didn't really talk a lot about, but it really pertains to what consumers are looking for today. So how are you going to market specifically to them about your product? How are you going to take a look at that and really understand how you can get to that consumer and connect with them to say, hey, my product can do more than this one thing, or my product also does this. And then finally, how are you thinking about your future product development and your product launches? So I feel like that's going to be something that's going to change here. 2021, who knows where we'll be then, but really thinking about that product innovation and understanding that right now these trends seem to be towards plant-based. Are you going to be coming out with something like that? Is that something that you should be promoting? Or should you be thinking about functionality within your products, or cutting sugars or something of that sort? And how are you going to be addressing that when you're looking at new product development and launches, and the way that you're creating that packaging to tell the story of why your product is going to help someone with their immunity or just their overall health as they're trying to be healthier here today. So with that being said, thanks for letting me talk to you all today.